Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Whiskey Podcast. I'm your host, Chew Data.
I'm your other host, Nate Fu.
And we're here to talk to you about Jack Daniels and shit.
Can you believe we're already at episode 9?
Yeah. This what started off as let's see where this goes. And we're actually following through with it pretty regularly. I'd say that's a good start.
Yeah, I've been actually having a ton of fun doing this. This is, with the other stuff I've been doing on the side, it's, I'm kind of tied to their script and their show notes, and
right.
It's been kind of nice that I can just put my own piece out here at the same time.
And for those that can't tell, we don't use a script.
No, there's no show notes here. That might be changing though, because
once the wives get a hold of it, we'll see how that goes.
Now we do ramble a lot. So welcome once again. Here we are yet again. Another change of venue. Last week we did outdoors at the back of Chudada's house, but it is sitting around 103 degrees outside right now.
106.
106. Wow. So yeah, we moved to a little more temperate environment last second, and so welcome to Chudada's office with all of his tchotchkes behind us. I don't know if you can see the Diablo poster over my shoulder.
We literally just rearranged this about 2 days ago so that Chew Mama now has her own desk in here.
Or in this case, my desk.
Yes.
I very promptly came in and took it over. Oh, man.
He does that. He's also probably spent about 3 hours trying to get the computer that she has to work, and it's not. We ordered some new pieces. We'll see how that goes.
Isn't Winders lovely? Hold on. What are we drinking tonight, Chudada?
We are drinking Jack Daniels and Coke. Ooh. Jack Daniels is a staple, and if this combination is good enough for good old Frank Sinatra, it's good enough for me. Clink.
Yeah, clink. I used to drink Jack straight, and man, I can't do that anymore. I think I got too old at some point in time.
But it's so smooth when it's mixed.
And it's also very smooth when it's ice cold, and you can't keep anything ice cold right now.
It's been weird out there. We're officially August 1st. We have all survived July. I'm very interested to see what new clusters hit all of us.
Right.
There is, in fact, a hurricane hitting Florida as we speak right now. We had a nice little shaker a couple days ago as well.
Oh, yeah.
What, 3 miles from your house?
Well, yeah, from both of ours.
Yeah.
Very pedestrian earthquake by California standards. It was a 4.2 centered in
San Fernando?
Yeah, San Fernando, Pacoima.
Yeah, they said it's the exact same epicenter as the 70-something quake.
Right. And, at 4:30 in the morning, that's a real rough way to wake up. In my case, I wake up at 4 o'clock every day to go to work. So I was having my morning pee. Here I am standing, half asleep, doing my deed, and what felt like a truck hit the house for a second. It was a good quick jolt, which sent all 3 of my cats flying out of bed, and then proceeding to power slide down the hardwood floor hallway. Mm-hmm. It was way too much chaos for that hour in the morning.
Yeah, my dog hid, my baby slept. My wife startled herself awake, and that was how that morning began.
Good times. Yeah, so, that's something you have to, it's a risk you take living in California, and I would rather have the fault lines slowly
ease their tension.
Right, ease their tension. We'll crop dust the entire coastline there instead of just one more big one like we had back in 94 with Northridge. So that one was pretty brutal.
Yeah, and we'll probably see more of those, unfortunately, with the way this year's going. So,
Yeah.
knock on wood.
No, I was watching the app after it happened. Obviously, USGS does a pretty good job at reporting and location and intensity. So I had the app open for subsequent aftershocks and whatnot, and I mean, literally the entire coast from Mexico to Alaska was just riddled with little quakes. And then again, on the other side of the Ring of Fire there in Japan, had a couple of them, so a little bit in Hawaii.
So here's the important question. Do you remember History of the World, the Flash thing, the Flash movie back in the day that was like, so here's the Earth, and you'd say it's a great Earth, right? Wrong. But they had a good, interesting premise. What if California and Alaska broke off and we all just went and hung out with Hawaii? I can see that being a good thing.
I mean, I could see the instant upgrade to beachfront property being a kind of a nice thing.
Right. After you cleaned up, but
sure, it's still on the property.
All right. So now, Mr. Nate Fu, Daddy Fu, why are we talking about shit today?
Oh boy. Sometime around the time of recording the last episode, the wife and I sat down and decided to make the choice to start potty training my oldest. My oldest being just over 3 years old. We had tried to do it once prior, or thought about doing it once prior, but for some reason, when our youngest was born, our oldest decided to regress and refused to remove her diaper because, her little sister didn't have to potty train, so she'll be damned if she's going to have to. It became a little bit of a power struggle between the two of them. We decided we were going to start it last weekend, and so far, it's going well. I think we're making some pretty good headway on it.
Well, I think you've had a couple benefits also that have helped out.
Having hardwood floors is definitely a benefit.
Well, first off, it's not in your house.
Well,
so any mishaps are actually been happening at my house for the last week.
Yes. We've had a couple mishaps at our house.
A few overall, but she's been good for the most part.
Yeah,
but here's the second
more often
thing.
than not.
Yeah. Here's the second important thing. My niece, Nate Fu's oldest daughter, doesn't feel the need to wear any clothes when she comes to visit over here.
No,
so it's a lot easier to get her to, get on the potty quickly when you don't have to take off everything, I guess.
Right, and we don't ruin underwear or ruin clothing when she does have the accident or 5.
Yeah, and let's just say she doesn't have to worry about tan lines.
No, that girl's got a nice golden brown to her now. Jeez. She definitely takes after my complexion.
Dude, she's darker than you now.
Right? Well, I haven't been out in the sun. I know better.
Yeah. But as she informs us, the sun just makes her brown.
Mm-hmm. Anyone that has kids that has gone through this phase, 1, the 3 nature, 2, potty training, you understand my size. It's frustrating because, I've got my little girl now that runs around the house butt naked and tries her best. She really does try her best to make it to the potty on time. It's just, it requires literally a set of eyeballs on her 24/7, while she's running around in that state. And if you avert your gaze for a minute, that's when the accidents happen. Yeah.
Well, I think the biggest part of it all isn't like treats or the games or anything like that. She legitimately is proud of herself.
Yeah.
When she does it, and she's excited to share the success. And she kind of recently had a switch in her mentality where no, she's not a baby anymore. She's a big girl.
Mm-hmm.
And she's making very clear distinctions between herself as a big girl and your youngest. And my daughter, who, of course, just reached 6 months this past week.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 months.
When we started this cast, she wasn't born. Was she born yet?
She was born.
She was just born.
Will we start this in March?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she was roughly 6 weeks old So we've gone from 6 weeks to 6 months of her life, not only doing this podcast, but in quarantine, and all the other fun things that have been going around with it. Holy shit.
Right?
Keeping with the theme of shit.
Right. That moment of revelation is like, it's been 6 months and we haven't left the house in 6 freaking months. I mean, well, we have, but not in any sense of normalcy. Oh, I can't wait till this whole thing gets to because I'm realistic to say it's never going to be over. I think this is one of those events in the course of humanity that...
Sorry, we've been fact-checked by the wives. We started this in May, not March.
May, okay.
It is currently August 1st, so we started this in May.
Yeah, that would make sense. 2 a month. Okay. Thank you, wives. May.
Got to keep us on our feet and our toes.
That's what they're there
principles. For. Yeah. Here's a life lesson for all of you gentlemen out there. You were wrong. You will always be wrong. Just accept it. And be thankful that your wife is there to correct you.
You know, what's funny is we can hear them through the wall.
Yeah.
So I know what the chat delay is.
Uh-huh.
We love you.
Heart.
Don't kill us in our sleep.
At least not until I get that life insurance plan.
Where was I before we were so brutally sidetracked by our fact checkers?
We were talking about we're still trapped after 6 months.
Oh,
and
yeah,
we're
not... When this becomes manageable, you know, because again, this is not something that's just going to go away and we're going to go back to normal as we saw it. It's just, you know, it's not. It is and it's not the same as 9/11. A lot of lives were lost in a very short period of time for that. I think we're over that body count. Significantly at this point.
Yeah. And I mean, the big thing with 9/11 is as drastic as it was an isolated area.
Right.
You know, it really was New York and a couple other planes that went down with it, but primarily New York.
Right. And there clearly was someone that you could point a finger and blame.
Right. In this situation, it's across the United States relatively equally.
Right.
And places where we as human beings have not taken the best course of action with it are where we're suffering the most as a country, and will continue to.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you can say that this originated in China, but it wasn't a malicious act.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it wasn't something that China did to...
It was natural.
Right, it was, well, it was natural to that effect. But yeah, they didn't go, hey, let's get everyone infected and send them over to America to cripple their economy.
But here's one for any of you religious types out there. We've had locusts across Africa this past year, including killer wasps here in the States. We now have a plague.
Whatever happened to the murder hornets?
They just kind of chilled out there. That storyline kind of worked its way out. I mean, the writers tried to introduce it. It didn't get the type of attention they wanted, so they had to change it up a bit.
They should have focus grouped that one a little bit better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're well above the I would say the worst tragedy in American history in terms of body count, and
well, you know, unfortunately,
that one event changed so much about how we operate on a day-to-day basis. You know,
it's unfortunate that there actually is a case study for where we are right now.
Sure.
Yeah, the Spanish flu pandemic. And exact same BS that happened now happened then. People refused to wear masks. Everyone decided to quickly get back to their life because they were getting bored with it. And sure enough, it exasperated it. It wasn't the first wave that killed majority of the people. It was what came afterwards when people, kind of ignored it and tried to push back as quickly as possible.
Like, we know what to do in the situation, and we again failed to act, and now we're 6 figures.
Yep.
So... yeah, again, it's the tangent being we're not going to go back to normal. We're going to go back to a point where it's managed and we act differently in accordance to a new set of rules, a new paradigm that we now have to live in. You remember the days when you could drop grandma off at the airport and literally walk her up to the gate, give her a kiss on the cheek, send her down the skyway, and watch her plane take off from...
Remember when grandma used to be able to do that to me as a kid?
Yeah. So that's gone. I mean, that's a reality that a lot of people will never understand. They will see pictures of this and go, how did you get away with that? And we didn't have a nasty event.
Smoking on planes.
Oh.
There's so many things, and again, we've talked about this at high levels throughout our other episodes, but how quickly times are changing now. But you look at the Gen X, the millennials that are on the older side, etc., and you realize that they did experience things before technology started evolving at such a drastic pace.
Sure.
And then you look at millennials on the younger age going into Gen Z, and whatever this current culture is called, and differences of the years in technically another generation, because there's such drastic differences in how they're raised, what they're exposed to, what their assumptions are. I don't know. We've done a lot of research for what it means to be a parent, mental health, schools and that kind of situation, which we'll circle back to. But
hopefully, this is where show notes would come in handy, because because I edit the podcast. There have been so many times, I'll talk more about that later, and then as I'm editing the podcast, I'm going, I never got back to that.
Yeah, son of a...
No.
What was I just saying?
And this is why we are such abysmal failures as hosts some days.
Some days. But no, so there's such differences nowadays, and I realize a lot of the stuff that even we were raised as kids, and some of our peers or people that are younger than us that are now entering the workforce were raised, are such different rule sets from how we are to raise our kids today. The amount of the times and assumptions that we make certain conversations and certain decisions, and then we realize even the United States and their federal mandates and regulations are so far different than the way the rest of the world does it. And that's just because the rest of the world is working on different assumptions and different studies that it takes that much longer to vet.
Well, even different social constructs.
Exactly.
That's something we could dive deep into, and we probably won't, because
it's not in the show notes.
It's not in the show notes. Two, I don't know that it's relevant.
We'll do a blog post on it at least.
We as Americans have espoused a certain set of beliefs that differ very wildly from other countries, and other developed countries for that matter, in terms of inclusivity and gender roles and the whole gamut of social interaction that is scoffed at by other developed nations. But we feel that it is right for what we do. And we try to, I don't know, I guess we try to push that. This goes back to when Russia got democracy. Right? You remember when we pushed blue jeans and Elvis on them? And it was the greatest thing in the world. It was the United States' crowning achievement at the time, that we got the communists to think democratically and adopt our system of government, and it failed miserably for them.
Oh yeah. We see how conditions are now. And really, who's playing the strings at this point?
Right. And I mean, we have world superpowers that still believe that women are substandard. That, can't show any part of their body in public. And this is not new to us. This is, prior to the 1920s and the whole flapper movement. That whole flapper movement was, women showing their ankles. My gosh.
How risque.
Right. But there's still powers in this country that still have these mindsets. And it's not wrong to them. And it's wrong to us. But who makes those rules? Do we make the, I
don't think that one's an easy one, but it's part of the overall, I think, society conversation that we're having this year. We've watched a lot more of the quote-unquote woke culture and a lot more of some of the more ingrained cultures have outright clashes.
Sure.
And in most cases, there's some things that should be standard common knowledge and basic ethical and moral understanding that are still being debated as fact or fiction.
Mm-hmm.
We have a social contract as humanity that should be setting certain standards that we choose to ignore. And that's very unfortunate. You've got one culture that pushes things to an extreme and the other culture that pushes back, so you're just fighting extremes because, us versus them is a lot easier to comprehend than you versus me, or you and me. And that sigh of pain was Grandpa Fu stretching the wrong way.
Yeah, I can't cross this leg flat right now because, being a 45-year-old dad and chasing around youngins, I turned the wrong way and pulled a groin muscle.
Being a 35-year-old dad and uncle who's fat and out of shape is also the same situation. So. Sorry, I am not out of shape. I have a father figure.
Ba-ding-ding. And round as a shape.
Mm-hmm. My body is a temple, old, crumbling, and probably haunted.
So yeah, once we get out of crisis mode with this pandemic, there's so much that I want to be able to do again, and let's sigh.
So I mentioned earlier that the office was redone so Chew Mama can have her own desk and space here. Well, Chew Mama, as well as Lady Fu, are both teachers. And here in California, they are spending at least the first quarter, if not the first semester, remote teaching.
Right.
And while I think that's healthy, there's a lot of other things that has an impact on. Forget just the teachers, but students now have to not only have a discipline and commitment to follow through, which is hard enough when you're standing in front of them, but they have to have reliable internet access. They have to have a device that's capable of accessing things, which is partly the burden of the school districts to support them in that way. You've got to have an IT layer and support layer that doesn't exist. And there's a lot of push lately from Republicans especially to open these schools back up, not necessarily because of the economic impacts, because let's be honest, schools are very often a daycare that allows our economy to prosper. But at the same time, those schools opening up starts pushing us back to a routine. And that routine is going to be constantly in flux. So this generation that's in schools right now may be the most agile and flexible and strength when it comes to ambiguity that we've seen from any generation as a collective whole. But until they get through that point in learning, it's going to be difficult for everyone involved.
And we're actually, one of the things that's going to come out of this is the idea that internet access, network access, is no longer a luxury item. It is now a utility.
Yeah, remember when, 3 years ago, when the Trump administration made a point of, taking away some of the statuses that had been put in place to classify it as a utility?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're seeing the results and impacts of that right now.
Yeah, and the whole net neutrality argument of that's a different side of the same coin, but you're experiencing now in the schooling system again a status divide between the haves and have-nots. Most of us, anyone watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, has a level of connectivity that they don't realize that not everyone has. This is not something that is 100% coverage, right? There are still students, kids, adults that rely on McDonald's Wi-Fi to check emails, to send resumes, to apply for job applications online.
Public libraries.
Right, public libraries. Our buddy Dan knows that. Like, he still sees people all the time, and it's just like, libraries, they're almost useless in an internet-connected world.
Mm-hmm. Until you realize that their existence now is to help people that don't have access to that connectivity.
Correct. Right. Almost every public library in the United States has some sort of computer station, right, or a bank of computer stations that allow people that don't have internet access to go and do things to, again, check their homework, communicate with the teachers, and again, send out job applications, look up jobs. Right, there's a lot of jobs that, went back in my day, I'd pick up a newspaper. Does anyone even know what a newspaper is anymore?
Right.
Right? I'd pick up a newspaper, turn to the classifieds, find the job section, I'd go and look at it, I'd call a phone number, I'd talk to someone, and we'd schedule a in-person meet. Nobody does that anymore. No job short of low-end, very entry-level, menial labor advertises in a local newspaper anymore. There's no worth to it. So they it's easy for them to post up to Monster.com or
Indeed,
LinkedIn, right? They can or even on their own website. Link in, you send a resume via email, or you send a resume via a fill-in form, submit it to them, everything's done electronically. Well, if you don't have connectivity, you're now cut off from opportunities that you may be very well qualified for, you may have the education for, you may have the experience for. But because of your circumstances, you can't afford to have cable internet,
Well, and think about this entire pandemic situation we're in now. If you are in a luxurious position that you can continue to work by working remotely, what kind of resources and privilege do you have to be able to keep that capability?
Right.
You have to have a personal computer that is able to continue doing the job that you do. You have to have connectivity. Your business has to be complex enough that it can support that remote environment and those remote capabilities. Factor in childcare and what that means and how does that deal with things. This has been good because it's giving people more flexibility in their life, but it's also more detrimentally ruining the gap between what's work and what's your time.
Right.
And we as Americans already have trouble with that. When you get in trouble for using the vacation and sick days that are designated for you in the first place, where the rest of the world, takes advantage of their vacation days.
Sure. Yeah, I've got more vacation hours than I can probably shake a stick at this point, and I save them because if an emergency happens, right? If an emergency happens, they will, before not paying me, they will pull from my vacation hours and my sick hours in order to keep me having some sort of income. So if I use those up for recreational days, which I should be doing, something happens, I might be unpaid.
Yep.
But yeah, internet is no longer a luxury item, and this is something on the education side, with our wives in particular being that are the providers of said education. We have to have an exceptional level of connectivity in order to provide that education. You have to, in your case, rearrange your office so that your wife can sit here and educate from the comfort of the confines of your home.
Yep. And that's not just the connectivity. You have to have a computer that's capable of doing what you need it to do. And most likely a video camera, a mic, so that you can communicate clearly. We happen to be more technology enthusiasts.
We happen to get lucky and do this. There was a side benefit of doing a podcast right at the start of the pandemic. The pandemic
we got some really nice mics.
We've got decent mics. Apparently, these are now back ordered for about 8 to 9 weeks.
Yeah,
this particular
Logitech because I was looking at getting Chumoma a new camera. Logitech is back ordered 16 weeks for their halfway decent streaming and video conference webcams.
Yep. Because everyone now has to just do their job. Now has to have a microphone and webcam.
And there are some companies which are nice that are trying to prioritize who they ship things out to. So, office worker A will get it in time, but educators, healthcare workers, and I forgot the third one, are primary classifications that they will try to expedite you as soon as you order. So there's a number of companies that are doing that. And, originally it was PPE, but now it's starting to include other things necessary to do business. All medical right now, unless it's serious, is telehealth.
Yep.
We've got... My wife ended up injuring her jaw, and she did physical therapy through telehealth.
Yep. So my wife because she trips over the ground.
The ground jumped up in front of her.
I swear I saw it.
I did.
But, rolled her ankle. And you can't go in for physical therapy. So she took my laptop out into our backyard where there was space to do the physical therapy. Mm-hmm. And conferenced with a doctor and, did her exercises, made sure she had her technique down. And this is great that she could do it, but heaven forbid I didn't have I think my router is a $320 model that has ultra-wide coverage.
Mine behind you, which can't see on stream, but...
Yeah, it's got ultra-wide coverage, it's got multi-in, multi-out.
We want to mount that, by the way.
Yes, I know. Yeah. But it's got all the bells and whistles that allow us to extend outside of our normal reach, whereas even, the most basic, you've got to be tied to a desk. Mm-hmm. So you picture someone living in a studio apartment trying to do physical therapy in a crowded confine with a kid running around or two other people, or trying to do a therapy session and trying to converse with their therapist, which is supposed to be a private environment, and you can't because you've got chaos around you. Again, things we take for granted. We have an office today that was like, it's hot outside. I think we're just going to come in here to this rather large room, set up our microphones, set up a camera, beam it across, 2.5 miles to my computer at home sitting in my office that is now beaming this to your eyeballs. And
uphill both ways.
Yeah, we have a luxury that even I take for granted that a lot of people don't have, and that should be it should be a utility at this point. And I think that's one of the things that's going to come out of this, especially in the education realm, is that I think that connectivity is going to become a utility. There's already plans in place for students and for households with children in them that is the equivalent of the old Universal Lifeline. And if anyone's not familiar with that, Universal Lifeline was a federal-funded program to provide every household with a telephone number. Because back when that was a burgeoning technology, and then everything, and again, it became the pervasive way and means of doing everything. You had households that could not call 911, that had no ways and means of getting a hold of emergency services because they had all switched over to this 911 system where that's how they fielded that.
Right.
So Universal Lifeline was set up to where there was no frills on it. You didn't have call waiting. You didn't have star 69. I'm showing my age here, and I said 69. Giggity. No caller ID. None of that. But it was a phone number that if you picked it up, it had a dial tone, and that dial tone could connect you to emergency services. So there's already a program being developed now that has a similar aspect to it for internet connectivity to all households. And a lot of it is setting up high-capacity Wi-Fi hotspots, because that's the easiest way to deploy it. You go right into the center of the town or right in the center of wherever. You stick a tower in the air that's probably already there because cell phone service exists. and you put this high volume, high powered Wi-Fi repeater
Yep.
in the middle of the city, and anyone that has a computer can purchase, or they'll probably at some point in time give out a wireless Wi-Fi card.
Well, something that we also take for granted, and I think it's a lot of the America putting its head in the sand, is we look at other countries. And
no, we're a superpower. We don't need to follow their rules. We don't need
Right.
to look anywhere else.
But I look at like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all these countries that we, take this heavy stance on about human rights issues and things like that. But in those countries, every citizen, every person gets, as a student, their own computer.
Mm-hmm.
All the textbooks, all the work is digitized so that they can access it no matter what. And regardless of who you are, you have access to those systems, whether you're in a learning environment or whether you're at your house or whether you're just out on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say this because, I've heard people talk about it. I've physically been there and I've seen it, and I've actually worked on those systems to help, and grow. And it's amazing that, for half the cost of apparently the F-35 jets that are trying to be snuck into the new, COVID relief act, you could literally take the entire population of Saudi Arabia and give every student their own computer and their own dedicated access
Mm-hmm.
to everything they need from kindergarten through high school.
And it's amazing. Like, you bring up Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and what's the coastline over there? I forget the city. Dubai,
Yeah.
right? You look
The
at something
Emirates,
like that, and they are so absolutely progressive in so many ways as far as providing services for its community, and yet don't show your ankles if you're female. It's still a male-dominated society. It's funny, like,
And that's in some places.
yeah,
And it very much differs. And there's a lot of change.
Yeah.
There was a recent senator who threw a temper tantrum about, we shouldn't allow Chinese students to go to our colleges anymore to study physics and chemistry or something. Guess
Yeah.
what? Most of the Middle East, their up-and-coming political class went to school in England and the United States. The former crown princesses of Saudi Arabia went to USC and UCLA.
right.
They received our culture, and a lot of that has gone back.
Mm-hmm.
So there are still issues of the male-dominated situation, but just having been there 5 years ago, women owned and ran their own companies. And while we laugh at that to a certain degree here because of what we deem ideal, they've had more progress in the last decade
Yeah.
than we as a society have had in 60 years.
Yep.
And things don't change overnight, but they're changing a hell of a lot quicker than we are as we continue to dig our own holes.
Yeah, I mean, we have senators and congressmen here. What was it? Was it congressman from one of the southern states that was staunchly against, COVID's a hoax and I'm
Yeah.
not wearing a mask, and he just died
Yep.
from COVID.
Well, one of the former Republican presidential nominees, Herman Cain,
Yeah.
refused to wear a mask, went to the Trump Tulsa rally, got COVID-19 there, and passed away earlier this week.
Mm-hmm. That's the one, Kane.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, why? Why? Like, when does this hit home with some people? Another, because I consume podcasts like they're going out of style. Another podcast I listened to had recently pointed out
Well, hit him up. What's their name?
the Daily Zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much a progressive podcast that has no issues poking fun at even the liberal side of it. But which is why I like them. They're not so left leaning that it's washing out everything. They're critical.
Right.
They're critical when critical is necessary. So if you have a chance, look up the Daily Zeitgeist. They're actually out here in California, but they have guests from all over, and they're a good listen. But they had recently pointed out with the numbers that we're seeing right now as far as COVID infections and COVID deaths, there is nobody in this country that can say that they don't know anyone that was affected or infected by COVID at this point. 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon is out the door now. Like, you know someone. You've seen someone, or you've heard of someone you work with's brother, right, has died or been infected by and adversely affected by COVID.
You're seeing entire towns and cities
it's not a
that
hoax.
thought themselves too small, that were always isolated from what's going on in the greater world, are now suddenly exposed and dealing with these at a personal, local level.
Right.
And still people refuse to address or admit or acknowledge it.
Yeah, I've had 5 cases at my work site. So, like, this is a reality. This is not something you can politicize and brush under the rug.
So moving on from our conversations, I would love, in the future of the Whiskey Podcast, to start bringing on other people and getting another outside view on some of these topics, whether it's parenting, whether it's life.
Well, I mean, we completely got off the talking shit
we're still talking shit.
Right, and we're talking about other shit.
Exactly.
Now.
It's all shit.
Yeah. At this point, my oldest daughter is well on her way to being an independent pooper. Right, this morning she woke up and chose the bathroom she wanted to go to. Like, she went down the hallway and she goes, "No, I want to pee in Mommy's bathroom." Because we now have seats in both. And she did. She climbed up, took down her morning diaper, hopped up on it, had a good pee, turned around and went to flush. Unfortunately, she first went to the bidet side that we have, the spray nozzle we bought for the diapers, and thought that was the flusher. I had to stop her very quickly before she hosed down the entire bathroom.
And, as soon as she realized that she could hose down the entire bathroom, I'm sure that would have been the biggest toy in your house at that point.
Yeah. But yeah, things are kind of shit right now. And shit's just gonna get worse before it gets better, and I'm waiting for that, like the real estate market, 5 years ago? Yeah. We saw that floor hit, and then you saw it come back up, and I'm like, every time I hear a new number, I'm like, is this the floor? Is this the bottom? Are we going to come back up?
Well, economically speaking, I don't think we've hit the bottom yet. I think, to be blunt, with the Republicans refusing to pass any additional economic stimulus or support, and letting the current employment benefits assistance lapse.
Is it officially expired as of this point?
We're officially expired. July 26th was the last day.
Yeah, I remember that deadline kept coming up, and a lot of people were saying we'll have a new one in place.
Yeah. And at this point, you're looking at...
So what did you take for a month income hit? $600 or $1,200?
You're losing $600 a week.
A week. So $2,400 a month.
Yeah. Per person. So, and that's across the board. $2,400 a month is now being taken out. And in a lot of cases for lower and middle class, that was the lifeline. So you're going to see a lot more evictions because the eviction moratorium
that
has
also
expired.
Done, yeah.
Evictions are going to go up through the roof. People are going to be unable to pay.
Which, you know what, that just blows my mind that any landlord at this point, and I'm sure your landlord, if it came down to it, and I've had this conversation with my buddy Sean. He's lived in his place for 20 plus years, and all of this stuff, like through hardships and whatnot, I've always told him communicate with his landlord. I'm sure if with the stimulus going away and the hit to your income that you're going to take, if you called up your landlord right now and said, I mean, you know what's going on,
Yeah. Well, and
things are going to be rough.
cases,
I'm sure most landlords are going to give you some semblance of relief, because if you don't, like, you look at these conglomerates that own these multi-complex apartments and multi-complex, neighborhoods. What do you, like? You're going to throw a family out on their ass and leave a place vacant?
Well, in a lot of cases, that may not even be the case. So there's a lot of landlords out there, specifically mom and pop landlords, that can't afford more than 2 months of not getting that rental income because that's what they live off of.
Right.
Or they've got their own bills and commitments at that point. So, and a lot of people, the thing is, oh, you can't throw people out, but at the same time,
I have to edit you if you don't talk directly into your mic.
Same
you don't
time,
have to eat the damn thing.
Yes, I do. At the same time, if these landlords, their entire business is this, and they don't have the luxury of being able to put money away, because their support, their ability to postpone mortgage payments, their ability to postpone their own costs and student loans and everything else also went away.
Yeah, but and there you go. You highlight the bigger issue is we are having a humanity crisis right now.
Mm-hmm.
That one of the things that I've heard some of the more progressive levels of politics propose is just a moratorium on all debt until this has some sort of acceptable conclusion where we can get back to business as usual or business as modified.
Right. Well, when you're looking at
the problem with that is the people that aren't on board with this are the highest of the high, the banks, the corporations. Sure, you put a freeze on all debt until we have some concept of what we're going to do with this. Mm-hmm. If nobody's in debt and nobody needs the money to pay back that debt because everything is frozen for the time being, we can kind of stop, reset, provide for ourselves, give us, get the unemployment without the extra $600 a week stimulus is enough for you to provide food.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we just had this last quarter showed a GDP drop of more than 30%.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's calculated into our my cost of living adjustment for work, and it was almost comical. Like they had to reformat the stationery to accommodate for the number that went into that text field
because it was so small.
No, how much the GDP dropped.
Yeah,
right. Because they're used to seeing percentage point 1 maybe 2% max, not
36.
Yeah.
And you just look at that, and that's with all this financial assistance.
Mm-hmm.
You take that additional financial assistance out, and that bottom drops out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just in rich blue states or poor red states. This is across the board.
Yep.
It's the very foundation of which the country is built on and what's going to happen.
Yeah, this pandemic doesn't have a party line. Its solution does, apparently.
Right. Well, I think on that note, maybe we start wrapping this up.
Well, I don't know. Have we talked about gaming? Because we're a gaming parent, life parenting and gaming.
All right, well, let's talk about gaming.
Let's get into a lighter subject.
Yeah, although, we just found out that Destiny 2 had to postpone their release of Beyond Light because of the pandemic. But we are seeing some very interesting things from Xbox, I think. Less about the technology and more about the way they're packaging things.
Right.
In particular, Game Pass, I think, is a brilliant piece of marketing and sales. You're our expert on that, so if you want to talk
just not to toot my own horn, I'd like to say I called this back when the consoles were first announced, that Microsoft would do something very compelling with the Game Pass Ultimate and xCloud as their, not necessarily a PlayStation killer, but as their method of monetization. And wow. They just did what would you say, a showcase.
Yeah.
That's the right word for it. A showcase of all of the first-party games coming out.
Well, it's not even all of them. They just did 10 of the 18 that are already committed to.
Right, 10 of the 18 first-party games that are coming out, which included Halo, Halo Infinite, which that...
Well, and here's the important thing. All these 10 games at least...
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Halo has had some critical reviews to it because it looks bad for next-gen hardware.
But if you're a Halo fan, it has the Halo look.
Right, if you're a Bungie Halo fan...
Yeah.
And this is like the divide that I've seen is the Bungie Halo fans, so Halo CE, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo Reach. They all absolutely love this trailer because it looks like what we've come to know and love. And then when 343 took it over, they stylized it, made it very beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But Infinite is definitely not it.
Right.
Right, so they've had some pushback on that. Currently playable is a game called Grounded, which is Honey, I Shrunk the Kid simulator.
Yeah, 4-person survival crafting. Right up my alley, but might actually be something that you play.
Yeah, it looks like they didn't lean too hard on the crafting element, which is my issue with games like Ark.
Uh-huh.
And even like your personal favorite, 7 Days to Die.
God, I love that game.
Like, I'm all for the action side of it. I don't need to mindlessly grind for hours and hours on end to make matchsticks.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can build fire, so that I can make iron, right? Or make a kiln. Like, I don't need that level of intensity to my grind games, and it just that turns me off because if I forget a day, I feel like that fear of loss kicks in, and I get a huge case of the fuckets.
Speaking of grinding, though, they also revealed that Game Pass and what Destiny 2 Beyond Light will look like.
Right,
in this next generation.
It's another one that's going to be included in the Game Pass model. The whole entire Beyond Light and associated DLCs are going to be included. This is not the season pass stuff. You still have to purchase that. But again, it's your barrier to entry is becoming very, very low. You purchase Game Pass, or in this case, Game Pass Ultimate is the better choice. You get Halo Infinite, you get Grounded, you get Crossfire X, you get Destiny Beyond Light, and all of the DLCs while it's on the service. You get the Forza series, right? Mm-hmm. I know it's the Forza Sim Racer. I believe Horizon is going to come to that as well. You get the new iteration of Fabled, which is a franchise that has been long awaiting another chapter.
And your particularly favorite game, Medium.
I'm not playing Medium.
Are you sure?
I'm positive I'm not playing Medium. And then there's the Senua sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These are all coming to Game Pass now.
Well, let's go back a step and talk about what Game Pass now is. You brought up Game Pass Ultimate, but right now Game Pass has a couple different layers and offerings, of which Game Pass Ultimate not only includes what we currently call Xbox Gold or Xbox Live.
No, Game Pass currently doesn't include Xbox Gold.
No, but it will.
It will, right?
It will include Game Pass Gold. It includes the complete library of all Game with Gold content, which is a bunch of older games as well as all these new games that we're discussing and we're discussing the showcase. But if you get the Ultimate, it also includes all of those games on PC as well as Xbox.
Right, which they've already had. They've already had the Ultimate prior to this announcement was you could get Game Pass, you could get Game Pass PC. Game Pass was $10 a month. Game Pass PC was $4.99.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your $15 right there. And if you were on an Xbox, you'd still have to have a gold subscription so that you could access the internet features of it. What they're now doing with Xbox, or with Game Pass Ultimate, which if you buy that now, just is Game Pass Xbox, Game Pass PC rolled into one, $15.
Right.
It's now going to include your Xbox Gold, so your internet access, and it's also going to include xCloud, which
is their competition directly for Stadia.
Right, Stadia and PlayStation Now and GeForce Now. So for $15 a month, you can play a library of over 100 games on PC, on console, on phone, and you're done, right?
Yep.
Now I'm waiting.
$180 a year,
right?
And you've got all this content almost everywhere you want it, except for a PlayStation device.
Right.
And it's all, or a lot of it will be cross-play. So if you are on PC and you want to cross-play some of that work with an Xbox player, you'll be able to do that.
Not just yet.
Some of the content.
You're putting a cart before the horse there. That's
you
not.
can do it with Arc.
Yeah.
There's talks of that being able to be done
right
now with Destiny because of the cross-play. Crossfire has indicated that is something that they're intending to do.
Right. That's all developer independent. That has less to do with.
In a lot of cases, though, if you're playing a game that's on Xbox and PC, and you're playing it within this environment, they're limiting your computer capabilities to be the same as the console capabilities. So, like Arc, for example, I can play Arc if I don't buy it on Steam. I use the Xbox game companion for it. I can play with people on the Xbox servers.
Right.
And so you start seeing a lot more flexibility. Once xCloud comes out, I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing that end up being in there as well.
Well, xCloud literally mimics being on. If I sign into, in this case, Destiny on xCloud right now, I can play with you on your Xbox. xCloud is currently limited to mobile devices, but it's another avenue, right? Like people give me shit all the time because I was a Stadia adopter when it came out, and I'm probably going to cancel that subscription and parlay that into my Xbox Ultimate because what I use on the mobile, I don't need it in 4K 60 with 7.1 surround. It's a great, I commend them for having the ability to push that kind of technology out over an internet connection.
Right. Well, and
you're not reaching a consumer. You're not reaching a consumer at his home base. Like if you're pushing this out as a way to connect, mostly on a mobile basis or on a limited basis because you don't have a console. But I don't know. I don't know anyone that just does not have a console that is looking at Stadia going, "This is the only way I can game, so I'm going to game that way." If you're that hard up that that's your only method of connecting, you probably don't have.
And look, even during the showcase when they were talking about xCloud, they outright say, xCloud is, I forgot to do something. Let me quickly sign on and do it.
Right.
Or, hey, remote, let me try and do this little thing here. But you're not going to want to compete PvP on a mobile device. You're not going to want to do end game content on a
but
mobile
like a first person adventure, like Fable.
You want to play Fable on a mobile device? It's entirely you.
Right. And I can think of so many times where I'm sitting at the DMV, literally twiddling my thumbs and looking at bad news on social media that I would rather be playing Fable.
Note, he has not been to the DMV in the last 6 months.
Well,
no one has.
Because everything's electrically connected now. I don't have to do that anymore. Yay, technology. But again, especially with our children, we have many times that we're sitting in the waiting room of the doctor's office. Right? There are times when I would be thankful to have a mobile way of playing something. So to have that added on at no additional charge, they didn't bump up the price of Xbox Ultimate. That's where they're making their money. They've basically thrown the gauntlet down to all of the other console manufacturers, Nintendo and Sony, and said, "Do you remember way back when, I don't know, about 4 months ago, when Xbox made a deal with Nintendo to put Xbox Live on the Switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the possibility of xCloud coming to a Switch.
Well, I mean, you talk about the big picture of things, and for the last at least decade, I'd say, a lot of technologists and economists are saying that the future of the technology business is not the hardware.
No.
It's not the access to it, it's the platform.
Well,
And the platform and what it enables. What Microsoft has basically done is said, we'll give you this platform that is, to a certain degree, hardware agnostic.
mm-hmm.
And said, you just be part of our platform and you get all these key benefits. Oh, and it works so well together.
Right.
On the business side, that's what Office 365, or Office now, they got rid of the 365 in the title now. On the gaming side, that's what they're doing with everything.
Everything's
Xbox
becoming a
related.
service model as a method of monetization, and that's why that's Xbox. Well, Microsoft has shown time and time again that the service model works with how they want to monetize, like how they want to make money. They'll do it through a service model that to the point where Windows 10 is no longer like you buy Windows 10 once, and it grows as the operating system matures. You don't have to keep repurchasing it. It's not, we're past the Windows 95 upgrade to Windows 98, upgrade to Windows Millennium, upgrade to Windows XP, upgrade to Windows Vista. Right, but that was the model, was to keep selling and selling a package, and that they went, oh fuck it, Windows 10 is Windows 10, and this is what Windows is going to be. At some point in time, whenever you need to buy into it, you buy into it, and then that's where you're at. They're doing the same thing with Game Pass. They're not trying to push console sales, and I've read a few reviews now that people are, it's doom and gloom for the Xbox Series X, and they may be right. The Xbox Series X may not sell as well as the PlayStation 5.
Yeah. Well,
but Microsoft is still going to make money.
Yeah. PlayStation has always had a larger market share.
Right.
Because Sony overall, as a hardware provider, has a much greater reach globally.
Sure.
Xbox, though, has realized that, and they're not trying to sell hardware. They're trying to sell an experience. And when your Xbox, last generation, could be used to watch television and film, could be used as your, Crunchyroll provider.
Right.
You could watch Twitch on it. It suddenly became an entertainment center rather than just a piece of hardware to play a specific thing called gaming.
You and I remember the day when the PlayStation 3, or was it the 3 or the 4, that sold so many units, more than any other gaming console ever in the history, because it was the cheapest Blu-ray player on the market. Nobody played games on it. It was the cheapest Blu-ray player on the market, and that's why it sold so many units. So,
and talking about the world stage, I remember spending a lot of time in the Middle East, and you could walk into a brick and mortar store and have them burn you a copy of a video game for $1 that would work in all those PlayStations. So they certainly weren't making their money off of games. They weren't making it off of hardware.
Right.
They were making it off of quantity. Microsoft is changing that game and saying, no, we'll give you all this access. They're doing the Netflix model.
right.
You have access to all these things and just give us $5 a month or whatever.
Right. And it's a good value proposition. I think that the $15 a month mark it's a happy number for a lot of consumers, because again, Netflix originally like $15 a month. I can do that. That's 50 cents a day. Right? If you start pricing it over that, you go $20 a month, and no.
And it's a psychological game.
It's a psychological game, and
number
there's enough evidence on there. It's like services that came out for $20 a month deplorably failed. Anything higher than that was just ridiculous. $15 a month was that sweet spot. So I don't know. That's exciting because I can't wait till PlayStation 5 releases the console price.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft doesn't need to make money on the console.
No.
They don't.
They could actually do it at a little bit of a loss.
Well, everyone's doing it at a loss.
Yeah. But, Microsoft can push heavily to sell because they're not selling the Xbox. They're selling the Xbox experience.
Right. The whole package.
The whole package, like the entire environment. And I know a lot of people on the PlayStation side that are like, maybe I'll get that because I also have a PC.
Right.
And suddenly things that weren't accessible before now are. And, depending on the game, that might offer crossplay that they weren't able to get in the first place.
Right. Or even, I bought a PlayStation 5, their top-end model. I've got a high-end PC, so I'll get the Game Pass Ultimate. There's a few games that really are better on console. Oh, I'm going to get the Xbox Series S, which is going to be cheaper.
Yeah. Okay,
I can afford to slide out a couple of bucks for a low end just for that the few times I need the console experience. Like the business model is they're doing it right. Like they're making their money on the service side.
Do you remember a time when we all hated Microsoft and everything they stood for?
Still do.
Yeah.
Still do.
But I think they've changed a lot about the offering that they give to people rather than just being this corporate overlord.
Well, they're still the corporate overlord. They've just lubed me up a lot where it doesn't hurt as much. Right? I'm kind of happy to take that pounding.
He might even find it enjoyable.
I might even find it enjoyable at this point. Right? I totally get where Microsoft has gone over the years to they want everyone on a subscription model because it's good business.
Yeah. It's guaranteed continuous revenue rather than a one-time, one-off purchase.
Right.
So they're selling a service, not a product.
Yep. So even those days that you're not using Word, which I can't tell you the last time I used my actual copy of Word at home. And they're still getting their money from me because I'm in that
subscription. Yeah.
I'm in that subscription. So and that's the thing with the Game Pass Ultimate. If I decide to take a 2-month lapse from gaming because life got in the way, guess who's getting my money?
On that note, any
you
good
really
games?
Want to get out
any
of here,
good?
Huh?
I want to start adding a little clip to the end thing. More of how we want to wrap things up typically.
I don't think we ever.
Any good games? Any good books, movies, TV shows you've been following lately?
What are books?
I read books. A few.
I do. No, I've never been a book reader. The fact that I consume as many podcasts as I do is a testament to how much I hate reading shit. Right?
Well, what's a new podcast you would recommend, everyone? What are you listening to now?
I listen to the Verge cast. It's a technology-based show. I listen to a cast called Reply All, and they kind of do some, what would you say, tech investigations. There was one that recently came out about the song that never existed but existed. Just real kitschy. This guy walked into a local Piggly Wiggly, right, over Christmas, and he hears a song playing over the loudspeakers, and he goes, "Holy fuck! I wrote that song." And the method of which they tracked down his ownership of that song, how it got into the circulation, who the provider of the music service grabbed that song from and how it ended up working out. The guy ended up getting paid for it because it was oh shit, yeah, we did kind of grab this off of a YouTube video and use it illegally. Right. So there's a little tech forensics going on there. So that's a Reply All does stuff like that. The Daily Zeitgeist, I listen to that one. I listen to just a plethora of Destiny-based podcasts. Some that I've actually been on. Yeah. The Guardian Downcast, the Guardian Hubcast, the Destiny Show, Focused Fire Chat, Our buddy Dan, he does a
Side
side
quest.
quests, where he just kind of does a weekly breakdown, covers the TWAB. Another one that I'm going to be on tomorrow morning, the Fork in Your Ear podcast. And they do a kind of a variety show as well. So I'll be doing that one first thing in the morning after my walk to get donuts. So, yeah, I consume auditorily because I don't have the patience to sit down and read text.
Fair enough.
So,
Well, I've been in a process of finishing The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. And kind of is a FU to all of our financial planning advice, things that are coming out right now. And I was like, no, there's no person in the history of the stock market or investing that's been able to beat reliably the index. The Dow Jones or the S&P. And so why pay exorbitant fees to people who keep saying they're going to try and save that money for yourself and how you can grow it from there? So it's just very down to earth, like keep it simple, stupid mentality that works and works very well.
sure.
But after that, I'm really excited. I got the latest Harry Dresden Files book. It's a great little book about the only licensed wizard in Chicago, and kind of combines a monster mentality and fantasy mentality together. And it's just a whole load of fun. Smart writing, smart character development. And been waiting a couple of years for this last book in the series. It's like book 17, I think, or 18.
Jeez,
And then end of this year is another book. The next one in the series after this current one. So looking forward to finally catching up with Harry Dresden and the rest of the team there. Also, it turns out that one of the press releases for it, one of my best friends from college, she got to play Queen Mab, and helping to put some of the photo shoots together. So that got me really excited.
Nice.
We'll see how things
A
go.
little personal tie to it.
Yeah. But other than that, Destiny, playing our Moments of Triumph. We've got Iron Banner next week. And,
oh, God, no. Not Iron Banner.
Then Solstice event starts. Trying to get everything before the content vault swallows it.
I don't have enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
Sad.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
We'll figure it out. Stop falling asleep on my couch. And for those of you that are not watching, you will see the death look I just received for that one.
All right, so we've covered all the topics. We've successfully killed what little bit of Jack we have left. I gotta piss like a racehorse.
All right. So, GG Nate Fu, where can we find you?
You just kind of said that. You can find me on Twitter at GGNateFu, because the @NateFu was already taken, and I actually like the guy, so I'm not going to try to step on his toes. Go say hi to him if you accidentally tag me the wrong way. You can find me on Twitch, streaming very rarely because life sucks and I'm on the West Coast and everyone I know is on the East Coast, so I sign on about 11 o'clock midnight East Coast time for a couple hours when my kids behave and go to sleep, but that's at twitch.tv/NateFu. I think that's it for my socials.
And you can find me, ChewData2020, at Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all of those. And new blog site for this, as well as the podcast, hopefully coming soon. So
Have we figured out that? Are we? Because we're not Whiskey with Wookiee anymore, right?
right, it'll be the Debuff Dad, so debuffdad.com.
Okay, you already secured the domain?
I already secured the domain.
Nice. Okay, so at the debuffdad.com.
But the site's not live yet.
Right.
But we'll get there. Until then, I'm ChewData.
I'm Nate Fu.
Signing off.
Have a good night, guys.